one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the approval of minutes from our June 15th Board of Commissioners meeting.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion we approve those minutes as submitted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Accounts payable vouchers, Paula?
Mr. President, I'd like to recommend the claims from June 19th, 2020 through July 6th, 2020 be approved without exception.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mr. President, I'd also like to recommend the payroll dated June 26, 2020 be approved without exception.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion also passes. Okay, we have an ordinance.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion we hear ordinance ordinance 2020-07 CMZ 2783 Car Family Farm LLC A to I3.
Second.
Good morning, Mr. Teeter.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dan Teeter, attorney with Riley, Teeter and Schreier. I have Kevin Bowl with me this morning. He is the petitioner's realtor and would make a comment or two after my presentation. As you're aware, we're requesting rezoning from A to I3 for this 98-acre tract. We received favorable recommendation from the Area Plan Commission with a 13-0 yes vote for the commitment and a 10-3 yes vote for the rezoning petition. The commitment would prevent inappropriate uses on this site, such as confined feeding, transfer station, and junkyards, just to name a few. There's more listed on that, and I think you've had a chance to review that as well. We're bordered on the north by Haggerty, on the west by I-65, on the south by I-3, on the east by the future extension of Yost Road, and beyond that, then we have farm ground. The Area Plan Commission and Dayton approved all the I-3 zones in this particular area, and those consist of McCoy Group, which is a truck sales and service business. They have outside storage. McAllister Machinery, which is a large machine sales and service business. Additionally, they have outside storage. And then Carr Family Farms, which is just west of McCoy and McAllister, and that's vacant at this particular point. We received a negative staff recommendation, but they indicated that they would go along with an I-1 for this particular area, and they based that upon a 25-year-old amendment to the land use plan. And I would suggest to you that in 25 years, there's been a whole lot of changes, including the rezones that I just talked about. And I think when staff gets ready to take another look at that, in my opinion, this area will be noted as being I-3 as well. I have some pictures for you. Those handout that I gave you, this is of the Toyota two-shoe plant. It's 350,000 square feet. It's on the north side of Haggerty, on the north side of the north entrance of the SIA plant as well. The building is obviously a tremendous asset to the community, and as well as our side, I think it's appropriate for an I-3 rezoning. The I-3 rezoning is needed because we must have outside storage. If you look at your pictures, you'll note that there is semi-trailers parked outside. That's part of this type of a business that we would put in. And as a result, it's not available in I-1 and I-2, and that's why we were requesting I-3. But when you look at the Toyota two-shoe plant, I don't think there's anything detrimental about what you see with that type of outside storage. We would do the same type of building or buildings on our site. They may be smaller. I don't think they would be any larger, but a similar type thing. So that's why I wanted to show you those as well. We have great access to that north entrance on the SIA, and I think obviously that's one of the main reasons why this area is so very interesting to various investors. The Yost Road extension is not something that we're going to need. We're going to access Haggerty directly from our site and go west, basically probably to the SIA plant. With a push to have offshore critical manufacturing in the U.S., we need to have a site that's shovel-ready. These site selectors for industries come in, they want to make sure that we've got environmental in place, they want to make sure that we got zoning in place. Once we have that, then they come back and say, okay, you're shovel-ready, and within about 30 days from that, they're going to make a decision as to whether they like that site or not. They move pretty quickly on that end of it. Obviously, to build the facility takes a longer period of time. I also would say to you that shovel-ready sites in Tippecanoe County have worked extremely well. Toyota Tushu is a good example of that. That was just shovel-ready. The site selectors came in, and as a result, they picked that site. If it hadn't been shovel-ready, that would not have been done at this time, in my opinion. I'd submit to you also the Dayton agreement with Lafayette for utilities, a non-exclusive agreement. Dayton says if we don't have to do the annexation, we don't have to put in water and sewer. I would agree. That would say that it's non-exclusive. If it was an exclusive agreement, then Dayton, for no reason at all, could stop any development that would occur, and I don't think that's proper. I think that's an absurd result. Additionally, our property is not even in the town of Dayton. We do have water and sewer available. It's on the north side of Haggerty. Water is there. Sewer is about a few hundred feet from that particular location. So there is other locations for the utilities. Last year, Dayton said, let's keep Dayton small. This year, I apologize. Forgive me. It never happens. I didn't think I was that popular, but so be it. They said, you know, I lost my train of thought here. Last year we did an annexation on the south side of Dayton. It was voluntary. And one of the things I brought up at the Area Plan Commission meeting was that it took about 2 years to do that. And that was a mistake on my part, so I apologize to the Area Plan Commission. I apologize to anybody else that may have heard that. I went back and checked our records. We started that voluntary annexation in 2016. We went to Dayton Town Board in April of May of 2017. Then there was a lawsuit in the annexation, and it didn't end until October of 2017. So that was about a year. And then from there, we went to the rezoning in March and April of 2018, and we finalized the subdivision at the end of 2019. So I guess I was thinking the overall period was 2 years for that, but for the actual voluntary annexation, it was 1. I don't believe this would be a voluntary annexation, and as a result, I still think it would take more than a year to get that accomplished. Presently, I think it's also premature to consider the annexation because of the TIF district. The TIF needs to successfully design and build this road, and my understanding it could take 3 or 4 years before that's done. I think they also need to work on the infrastructure for the utilities as well, and that hasn't been done at this point. So, you know, it's all about tax revenues. You guys know this better than I do, but right now we've got farm income, so it's $1,000, a few $1,000s a year for this particular area, okay? Whereas if we have these larger buildings like Toyota, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I think that's the only way that the TIF district can be successful. Without that, I don't think it survives very well. So again, from what you see on our site, we got Haggerty to the north, I-3 to the south, Farm Ground to the east, and we've got I-65 to the west, and beyond that, we've got Subaru with 1 million+ square feet of buildings surrounding it. So I would tell you that our request for rezone is appropriate. We will have attractive buildings similar to Toyota. We're not invasive. We're going to have minimum impact on the surrounding areas. I truly believe that you won't be able to see this site from the subdivisions in Dayton if something was built here. I think it would be very difficult to see. We think this would be another great asset to the community, and we would respectfully request your approval. I'd be happy to respond to any comments or questions. Thank you. And again, I apologize for the phone.
Dan, I have one comment, and you touched on it a little bit. You have a non-binding agreement
In my
with
opinion,
Lafayette. For utilities or such?
In my opinion, the Lafayette agreement is non-exclusive,
Okay,
okay?
okay. Wanted to hear.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Teeter. Good morning, Kevin.
Kevin Bowl with Kevin Bowl Commercial Group. Dan had asked me to come by and give you a little background. I was involved in the Toyota Tushu property, and he's absolutely correct. When they were looking for a site, we had the road property to consider, and as well as the car property, and they chose the car because it was shovel-ready. They were in a hurry, wanted to move forward, and it was ready to go. Rose is still sitting there. Most recently, I was involved with a project for Five Below. They looked at several Lafayette sites and chose Frankfurt. Again, the site was ready to go. The car site was not quite big enough. But when we get these requests, one of the first things they ask is if it's shovel-ready, if zoning's in place, if utilities are in place, if everything's ready to go. Most of the time, it won't even hit the short list if those things aren't already there. And we're getting several requests through this developer every month through the state. Not all of them are going to come here by any means, and not all of them are going to come to Indiana. But to hit the short list, it's got to be what they consider shovel-ready, which includes zoning, utilities, and the environmental. And then from there, they'll start looking more at what fits their needs the best. So it is pretty important if you want this developed in the next little bit that it be ready to go when they're in the market for something at that intersection. So if you have any questions, happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional public comment?
We did receive 2 emails,
Two letters.
both opposed.
One from Cindy Marsh, the president of the Dayton County Community Coalition, and one from Carla Snodgrass, who's on the Dayton Town Board, Dayton Town Council.
Okay, anyone else from the public?
Was that enough of a gap? Is there?
Anything online?
Just one quick question. By saying yes or no, Doug, this does count, the commitment goes, a yes means the commitment is with the rezone and such, correct?
I think you need to do that as a separate motion.
Do them separate? Okay.
Oh, we do.
Well, I mean,
I thought
so the motion on the table was just for the ordinance. You can amend the motion to include the commitment as well.
See, I thought when it came here now, it's all attached. You mean we couldn't approve it without the commitment? Is that?
I guess I don't know the ins and
So let's
outs. I would
play.
be
Okay.
happier if you had a separate motion that also, that
Okay.
just do 2
So
would be best for me.
I will, did you two? Okay. And so we should do the commitment first.
I don't think it matters a lot.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the commitment that goes along with ordinance number 2020-07-CM.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion passes. Now the ordinance?
Yeah.
Brown,
Yes.
Murtaugh,
Yes.
Byers.
Yes.
Ordinance 2020-07, CM passes 3-0.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
I believe you have some salary statements for us.
Yes, Indiana Code requires all the departments to give salary statements to the auditor by July 1 for the next year. And then the code also requires that the auditor present these to the county commissioners for their inspection. And so I'll pass those down to you.
So no action needs to be taken in regard to that.
No.
Okay.
You were supposed to make a recommendation at some point in time, but nothing now.
We did do a recommendation.
We made a recommendation for the percent or lack of percent increase, but looking at those in particular to make sure that everything is
Oh, I
lined
see.
up right.
We'll bring it back
And
to our next meeting.
I see.
Yeah, I don't know if you have to do that, because we've looked over them, and, we basically do the forms for the departments, and we kind of protect them, so it's difficult for departments to change the salaries without us involved.
Okay, thank you. Stu, Highway?
Good morning. I appreciate this table being right here. Okay. First item I have is a utility agreement with Indiana American Water. It's for relocation of a major water main on 500 North in advance of our reconstruction of 500 North and River Road. The agreement is the estimated amount of $266,300.
And obviously, that was budgeted as part of the project. So, Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we approve that utility agreement with Indiana American Water as stated.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Our second item is supplemental agreement number 3 for professional services with Crossroads Engineering. This is for the reconstruction of Yeager Road. Moves the contract to a total of $693,350, an add of $199,210.
Mr. President, I move that we approve this supplemental agreement number 3 as stated.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the supplemental agreement number 3 as stated. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Our next item is an unofficial detour, local detour agreement with Indiana Department of Transportation. It's for the closure of State Road 25. The detour would be, the unofficial local detour would be along County Road 1100 South, 825 West, and 1200 South.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we approve the unofficial local detour agreement with the Indiana Department of Transportation.
Second.
Hearing a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
We have a street acceptance for Stones Crossing subdivision, Section 4, Phase 4. This includes Scoria Court, 648.61 feet, Amethyst Place, 699.42 feet, Amethyst Drive, 108.39 feet, Dentel Street, 1,172.51 feet, Spinal Court Street, 102.54 feet, Ensley Street, 999.31 feet, and Drews Avenue, 94.12 feet. Also have a 3-year subdivision street maintenance bond in the amount of $39,849.80.
Mr. President, I move that we accept these streets as presented and the 3-year subdivision street maintenance bond with Midwest Paving.
Second.
Have a motion to accept the streets as indicated and the maintenance bond. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Okay. Our last item is an irrevocable standby letter of credit in lieu of bond for $5,000 for the construction of a Domino's commercial drive entrance and storm sewer tie-in within county right-of-way.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we approve that standby letter of credit as stated.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the standby letter of credit for $5,000. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stu.
Morning.
Morning, Shirley.
Let's start off with the position request for 2021. First is from the Assessor's Department, a personal property auditor appraiser, which would be a PAT 3, and evaluation specialist quality control, which is also a PAT 3. And Eric's here if you have questions.
So Eric, I think we did have one question in regard to the personal property auditor appraiser. And maybe it's more related to, for Doug, but the personal property auditor fund, can that fund pay personnel?
So our understanding is, or my understanding, and it's been a long time since I talked to Matt, you might touch up with him, we had him research it, but the fund can be used to pay specifically a contractor or be distributed back to its rightful district without appropriation. And we asked Matt, well, what could we do with appropriation? And he said it would probably be unethical to just put the money in the general fund, like it was collected from these districts. And so it's made to perpetuate audits and go back to the districts. But it specifically says without a contractor for appropriation. He didn't think it would be inappropriate to appropriate the money to pay an employee to do the same thing that you could do without appropriation for a contractor. He just wanted to make sure the money wasn't spent on non-auditing things or give back to the district. So I believe that the money could be appropriated to fund a position, but it cannot be done without appropriation.
And approximately how much is in that fund? Do you know?
Right now, there's about $400,000 in the fund. And there's a dispute with the contractor. One of the reasons I want to internalize this position is, as many of you have known, I have not gotten along well with the contractors. I don't think they provide good services, and I think the process should be internalized. So there is like an outstanding dispute over what's owed in the last contract to the tune of, worst case scenario, if we owe them everything they claim to be owed, it would be about $100,000, leaving about $300,000 in that account to, I think, adequately fund this position for at least 2 years. And that would, I'm even fine with funding it for a finite period of time, or as it's practical, but I think 2 years would give that person enough time to create a program, execute the program, and then validate its effectiveness.
And then does this fund have a revenue source?
Yeah, so basically the auditor goes out there and does what's called either audits active accounts or does a discovery process of accounts that people who should be filing but don't. And personal property is all on your honor. So a lot of people don't file, a lot of people don't file accurately, a lot of people file differently than what they'd appreciate on their federal income tax returns. So they're not supposed to do. So basically what happens is, it's been a contractor, but when something's discovered through the audit process or discovery process, it goes in this account. When I took office, there was almost $4 million in that account that we've distributed since and done more audits, but it could be very prolific in generating revenue, but it's all self-funded. I mean, if we find out everyone's reporting well, everyone's filing, and we're basically just making people produce information for nothing because everyone's really compliant, then this job will run out of funding and the position will go away and there's no need to audit people. If they're finding a lot, they're discovering a lot, there's going to be a lot of revenue in the account, it'll more than fund the job and still produce excess revenue back to the districts. And I think that's the idea. I mean, there's no real threshold. The contractors wanted $500,000 to continue to be able to be paid for audits maintained in that account at all times. We would probably have a much lower threshold, you know. So the idea is it perpetuates itself or doesn't exist anymore. And I know Bob's biggest concern is at some point it going back to the general fund or something, but I don't think that, I mean, either there's a need to audit or there's not, but if everything's perfect, there's no need to audit.
Okay. And then the second one, the valuation specialist. So we, if these two, or if this position is created, we need to eliminate two comment two positions. Is that correct, Shirley?
Yeah, we have, yes, that's
Okay.
correct. And, yeah.
And these two common two positions, have they been filled? Or they've been vacant for quite a while and such, or?
No, they've been vacant for a while. They're field staff positions, the people that go out and look at property. We were able to save staff by relying more heavily on aerial photographs. The issue, I think, is Right now, I have someone who's occupying a COM3 position as kind of a mid-level manager in that office who doesn't really have a job title commensurate with what they're doing. And really, the idea was to take some of the lower jobs that we don't really have a need for and create someone who can facilitate reassessment so it doesn't overburden the department head and the field staff. But overall, the new position saves a benefit package and overall less salary. And I think the benefit to you guys is right now the two field staff jobs, one's in reassessment and one's in the general fund. Because this person would oversee reassessment specifically, it's more than appropriate to fund it out of reassessment. So as both of those two COM2 jobs go, one leaves reassessment and is funded out of the general fund.
Okay, so I'm sorry, you lost me there.
Say,
Other way around.
Yeah, you're.
I'm sorry, other way around. Yeah, you're right. I said it wrong. It's the new job's funded out of reassessment.
Okay,
And yeah, sorry, that was confusing.
okay. So one of the comment twos is now funded out of reassessment, one out of general, but the new comment, the new PAT 3 would be funded completely from reassessment.
and reassessment sitting good enough fund-wise?
At some point, we may have to, we put like pretty much everything out of the assessor's general fund, except some salaries and wages into the general fund. And for now, that is okay, but at some point in the next, at some point, we may have to undo that depending on revenue, cost,
That's
ongoing
what I'm trying to
costs.
figure out. I mean, it's easy to say we're gonna pay it out of reassessment, the next year you say
then next year I have to put
reassessment's
it-
gone, I gotta throw it back into general. That's why I'm just trying to,
I don't think it'll happen next year, but that is a possibility in the next 5 years. We may have to start either A, cutting funds, and this has been something I've been saying for a couple of years, either A, cut funds, or if reassessment is in a situation where its expenditures exceed its revenue, it'll either have to go back to general or sales disclosure, some other fund, or just cut funds, depending on what it is specifically.
With this, we probably will have to increase the reassessment levy, I would think, because I think the budget for reassessment is greater than the revenue.
Correct.
And
there
because
is-
you don't always spend it all either, but
I think we also don't always spend it all. And then we also have countywide contracts that we could talk about, funding other ways that are paid out of reassessment right now. I think there's ways to, have a discussion about the long-term viability of keeping all the costs currently in reassessment there. And there's ways to phase it out over time. I don't think it would take much to get it to where it was the revenue exceeded expenditures. I don't think it's that far out of balance with all the things we moved in there over the years. But it is something that me and Bob talk about it every year and watch the cash burn in that fund.
and we probably need to talk about that before budget hearings, because obviously when you increase the reassessment levy, then that decreases the general fund levy
Sure.
by the same amount. So, but it's something that we can look at, but
Yeah.
before we get to August.
And then when you submitted the reassessment budget for 21, you have this position in that budget, 100% of that.
We budgeted as if this all got approved, and then knowing that it might not, and we may have to go back to the way it was, but
Okay.
we also figured that, yeah, we
And
budgeted for this.
And
being
did
approved.
expenditures and reassessment for the 21 budget that you submitted exceed revenue? Is
Yes,
that
I
what you're
believe
saying?
so.
I don't know that I don't know that I have that with me. It generally has the last few years, because we've had enough cash balances, you can do that, but you can't do that forever.
Indefinitely, yeah.
Sure. And part of our philosophy was that it didn't really make a lot of sense in times when we were trying to constrain budgets to let money pool in reassessment and not be used for assessment purposes. It seemed like there was lots of appropriate things to fund with it.
Okay. And I'll just make a note that obviously both of these positions do not have a negative impact on general fund. In fact, it actually relieves the general fund a little bit. So-
Yeah, we submitted it with the intention that this was a have our cake and eat it too thing, where we can get some higher paying positions, getting rid of some lower paying positions, saving overall payroll cost in a position.
And, Mr. President, do you want to do the motions by department?
I think that makes the most sense.
Okay. Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we approve for the assessor's office, the personal property auditor appraiser position and the valuation specialist quality control position.
second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve both the personal property auditor appraiser and the quality control position. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do we need to do something with the two that were?
Should we eliminate those positions? The two
Yes.
Okay. Then I'll.
Field staff.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we eliminate the two Comet 2 field staff positions.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes as well.
Should we go ahead and make it stated that none of these positions will be approved, A, from the budget, but B, starting January 2nd? Do we need to go ahead and identify our starting dates? Because we're going to say we just eliminate two positions, but theoretically, they're still getting paid for the rest of the year if they're still there.
They're both vacant
They're
at this
both
time.
vacant.
Okay.
I'm sure he's not going to fill them, but yeah. And the next pay period starts January 3. So it would really be 25 pays.
It's more of a policy issue for us to
Yeah,
address.
Yeah. So make sure that all the department heads in the room understand that any new hires for 2021 need to start no sooner than January 3. So, and then, can you communicate that to Eric since he left?
Yes.
Okay, thank
yes.
you. That's
And I
important.
assume you wanted the other two positions to be eliminated now rather than,
Exactly.
okay.
That's would be my intent, but.
Yeah, that would eliminate any possibility of them being filled, so. The next department is CASA for a full-time attorney, and that is an SO position, and she plans to use the match for a VOCA grant, and she is here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I brought Stephen with me also. He's got the responsibility of coordination of our grants in our office, so Stephen, if you have specifics. I want to give a historical perspective first with this. If you will recall, in 2018, we added a regular part-time attorney position, and that was funded through the general fund. We saw at that point the need within our program and so forth, and we even then started talking that really we needed to look ahead to a full-time position. In 2019, I started having more serious conversations, not only with our court, but with our then county council rep, Brian, in regards to what that would look like, knowing as we got through this grant cycle, going into the new grant, which we wrote, which in January of this year, prior to COVID and everything, that in his conversations with him, I was explaining my plan would be to attempt to get a new full-time position. The goal was to get entirely through the grant, and that so we would be able to have not only a regular part-time, which was funded through our county general fund, but also a full-time position. As the grant came out, we were able to see that we were able to successfully fund 75% of a full-time position through the grant, with 25% of that then would be a request through the general fund. This is a biennium grant, so it's a 2-year grant, so this grant will take us into 2022 when it goes into, is a continuation. We currently have the VOCA grant, but we're going to continue. So the cost per year from the general fund would be $23,561. The rest of that full-time position would be coming out of the grant. And if you see the email that I sent to you, gentlemen, and Shirley earlier, I do apologize, I misspoke when I said 75% of the position salary and 100% of PERF, the retirement, not the benefits. I do apologize, I put retirement or I put benefits where it was really the PERF piece. We wanted to stay within the spirit of this grant that we were awarded the $458,000. And because it not only would fund a portion of this full-time attorney position, but it also funds 2 staff advocate positions, which are full-time. And then we have the match and the volunteer coordinator, which is another full-time position.
And then if I could ask a couple questions
Sure.
in regard to your email. So you say in here that the VOCA grant is an 80-20 match, but you're mentioning that it covers 75% of the salary. Is it 80-20 or 75-20?
No, what that means, Tom, is when you write your grant, whatever your total amount you're going to ask for, you have to have a 20% match from another source.
Okay.
And that's what that means when they say 80-20. So It doesn't impact the percentage of what we're asking for.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, on the list of employees that it covers, it's covering the other employees at 100%. It's just the new employee we don't want
That's
to be.
correct.
Okay.
Correct, is that correct, Stephen? Did I misspeak?
The exception of the VOCA, volunteer coordinators in 8416.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's correct. Volunteer coordinators 8416, which I know Shirley loves those percentages.
Okay. But that answers my question.
Yeah.
But then also in your list of employees that are covered by the VOCA grant, you have both the part-time attorney and the new full-time attorney.
The way the grants are written, you have to list it as part of the grant, even though it's not the money that's coming in, because that part-time is the match piece from the county. So
Okay. All right.
if you when you write those grants, you have to list it all out. And Stephen, do you want to give any further explanation of that?
Okay. And then what was the, and you say the VOCA grant is a 2-year grant
Yes, sir.
cycle. And so what was the most recent VOCA grant? What was the amount of that compared to the new VOCA grant?
Yeah, it was close to 400,000.
The previous one or the current one?
The current one we're in,
Okay, and then the new one is how much?
$458,560.
Okay.
And I think, one quick question, Colleen. So $23,561 is the cost not covered by the grant. Does that also, that does not include, are the benefits in the grant? Or
That includes, that's salary for $17,243, and then benefits of $6,318.
Okay.
The perf is covered by the grant.
Health insurance also covered by the grant?
That was the second number.
It is, okay.
Well, no, part of the.
No, health insurance is not covered.
Is in that
Okay.
number. Yeah.
So that could be another 20,000 on top.
No, it's in there. It's in that.
No.
It said health insurance was not covered.
Come up.
Not covered by the grant,
Not
but it's in.
covered by the grant.
But it's in that dollar
amount.
amount.
It's in the plus 23,000 we're saying right now?
So the 23,000.
It's basically
Just
covering
read
health.
those numbers again, you just did.
Yes.
That's
17,243 is salary, and the benefits are 6,318. So in a VOCA grant, that is not an allowable expense. You cannot put a medical insurance into it because it waivers so much. There's nothing, you can't grasp a number and have it the same. So
And so those two numbers are what add up to the 23,
those two numbers are the benefits and the salary
and they
only.
add up to the 23,000.
The benefits are, I'm not, correct, it is not the health insurance, Tom, I'm not talking. Correct. Health insurance would come from the county.
Okay, then I am totally lost. Okay, I'm sorry, what benefits are you referring to then?
retirement.
FICA,
That the retirement was covered 100% through?
correct, retirement is covered through the grant. Then the ones that are not, the breakdown is FICA, workman's comp, life, and LTD.
Okay, so what would be, I think then Commissioner Byers has a good question. What is that total impact to the general fund with health insurance then?
So,
Depends on their level.
right, but we usually say about, I always look at like 20,000, or is that too much, you think, 12,000?
It's just right at about $2,000 a month for family, so.
So 24,000, basically.
If max.
If max, yeah.
Historically, though, I'm not going to get an attorney for $64,000 that's supporting a family, to be honest with you. I will, just historically, what I've been hiring and who has been interested in our positions, not that we can count on that, but I'm just giving that as more information.
Well, it could be an impact of 48,000 to the general.
Max, right.
Max.
Or it could be as low as 23,000 plus another 12,000, 35. Or they could not take insurance, that's correct.
But if I want to make sure I got it straight, the regular part-time is still going to get paid out of the general. The potential new full-time will be paid out of the grant/general.
Yes, sir. They'll be split, 75-25. I know this is a hard consideration, but we've been looking at this for over a year, and just the need within our community and Sometimes we operate out of 3 courts at once.
And then this should, if I understand this correctly, this should help alleviate some additional needs within Superior 3 for, I may have the term wrong, whether it be either pauper council or
PDs.
or CHIN's legal. I mean, doesn't this help ultimately relieve some of the expenses necessary within? Because wouldn't the judge normally then assign counsel if you didn't have one available?
Or I would have to have, I have another line in my general fund or my CASA GAL for pauper counsel.
Yeah.
That's what I've had to use in the past, yes.
What do you anticipate for 21 that it will do to your pauper counsel line?
I'm not asking for anything in pauper.
Okay.
What was it this year?
It wasn't very much, $3,000, I think. I apologize, I don't have that in front of me. Well, $3,000 from general, and then I had some from my CASA, so probably about 5,500. Something like, yeah, I think that was at 55. What it'd allow us to do, though, would be allow the court to appoint, we would be able to have the attorneys represent the best interests of those children as they come in to represent the CASA volunteers, or in an event that the judge would need another attorney to represent a child, she could even use that attorney for that. Because she does represent or appoint attorneys to children sometimes when they're teenagers, when they have, can speak on for themselves.
I guess I'm just gonna say, I can see the need, but at the same time, I know extremely how tight general's gonna be here. I mean, Bob's shoving that down our throats here pretty hard and heavy, and that's why I'm just curious.
I can understand it would be.
Would this be one by chance, and I'll get through the budget, see if there is any unappropriated funds come January, to then potentially come back in January and ask for this position? I mean, I'm just throwing stuff against the wall, because they're not gonna get hired until January anyway.
I think, though, in the spirit of the grant, the way it's written right now, my concern is we risk the other positions or having to redo a whole grant and then having it resubmitted to see if it would be reapproved. And historically, when you ask, you are awarded so much money and then you come back and say, wait, I don't need that money, I need to change this, it just puts at risk future possibilities for grants and so forth.
So this grant was written for this position before you even knew you had the position?
Well, with anticipation, yes. I mean, you have to think ahead for your grants. And, I have been fiscally responsible for our county, trying to do the best I can and getting what I can the most of. So we're getting a full-time position for $35,000 to $40,000 a year of an attorney.
So delving in a little bit into that, so if this position is not approved, does it jeopardize these other positions listed?
Yes, because of the way the grant is written. As you're awarded your grant based on how you've written your grant. And so we've had those positions covered by this grant historically as that grant has continued. I'm trying to think of all 3 of those positions, probably over the last 3 cycles of grants, which is the last 3 would be 6 to 8 years of grant cycle. Stephen, do you want to add?
To that?
Sure.
So it jeopardizes it in a few ways. One is just the match and being the number of match. The other reason is only 60% of the part-time attorney's time can be on the VOCA-funded children. So not all of our children are a VOCA-funded position. The attorney only represents 60% of the VOCA-funded children. Why we need multiple attorneys is because we have 2, sometimes 3 courtrooms at the same time, and it's just impossible to have an attorney in all those places. So if we try to, even if the dollars and cents add up, which they don't, but if they did, to put 100% match on the part-time attorney, it's not enough to support those positions. And it wouldn't be within the spirit of grant because that attorney would be supporting the entire program and all the children we serve, not just those on the VOCA supported positions that would jeopardize those positions that are currently filled. And that consequence is looking at about 115 children back on a wait list and just under 70 cases not having any kind of efficacy.
Is it a growing trend within CASAs across the state to add the attorneys? Is that?
More and more programs are looking at attorneys, depending on what the structure of their courts are, if they have public defenders that go in to represent parents and/or, the DCS always has their own attorneys. But yeah, I'm seeing that the need is there. The cases are so much more complicated, and the need to litigate in a courtroom setting is much higher now than it has been in the past. We have some very exuberant public defenders who, do their job to represent their parents, their people. That makes it a challenge. So we just want to make sure we can represent the best interest and put the needs of those children before the court in an appropriate way that can be litigated.
And I know, Colleen, from our discussion over the last couple of weeks about this, and surely jump in if I boogered this up, but basically, I mean, we know that those funds are at jeopardy. We could, the natural question would be, well, we'll just take the regular part-time and put it back into the grant, but that is a problem because we'd be supplanting or be paying for something that was already in place with county government. We'd be shoving it back over. So that is not an option if we're worried about grant compliance and having the money work out right.
Because I would see that as why now do you need it out of the grant when it's been provided through your county, correct?
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
Excuse me, before you do your motion, I just want to clarify, because CASA's budget year is October 1st. It begins on October 1st, and it's my understanding she would like for this position to start October 1st.
Correct. But if we have to, we can modify that. I mean, I'm going to risk the 3 months so that we can, because, again, another confusing piece, these grants are based on an October 1 start date, and they end 2 years within a September 30, the end of September. So, but in looking at that and considering and talking to Shirley, if we have to delay the start until, as you said, January 3rd, I believe, then that's what we would need to do. That's less of a risk than losing all those other positions within the grant itself.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we approve the position for the full-time attorney for the CASA office.
Yes, I can second that. I'll second it. So you have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
Okay, the next one is Probation Department. This one is a little easier, I hope. This is a probation officer that will be used for the high-volume courts, number 4, 5, and 7. Right now, Superior 6 has a probation officer assigned to them, so this would be an officer assigned to the other 3 courts. But Dave's here just in case.
Yeah, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dave Hollinger from your probation department. So until recently, the prosecutor's office, some of Mr. Harrington's staff handled compliance hearings in the lower courts, that being Superior 4 and Superior 5. They're not going to be doing that as of 2021. And Judge Zeman had asked for me to assist in making an effort to try to find a probation officer that could fulfill the role of many of those staff members that were doing compliance review hearings. And so that's what the request, or my request, is based on. Just for point of reference, I have one probation officer who manages compliance hearings in Superior Court 6. And part of the fees that are associated with an adjudication in Superior 6 include an administrative fee that by statute is required on felonies and may be incorporated in sentencing on misdemeanors. And that administrative fee goes directly into the general fund. And combining 2017 and 2018, I'm sorry, I don't have 2019 fees with me, but in Superior Court 6, over a 2-year period, the average administrative fee that was brought into the general fund was $32,500. So that's just out of Superior Court 6 adjudications or convictions.
Right now, the probation officer I have assigned to compliance hearings in Superior Court 6 has a caseload of approximately 1,300 cases. Those are both misdemeanor and felony. It's a little difficult to determine what your rate of compliance will be as far as payment on fees, be it court costs or alcohol and drug or administrative fees. But right now, we're looking at about $32,500 per year in administrative fees that go to the general fund out of Superior Court 6. The caseload that's currently in Superior Court 4 and Superior Court 5 is going to be spread out, again, over another court. But right now, it looks like, on average, there are compliance hearings out of Superior 4 and Superior 5 that are approximately almost 1,900 per year. That averages about 160 a month. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get one probation officer to 3 different courts for compliance hearings. However, it looks like those compliance hearings are going to be approximately 150 to 160 per month. The role of this probation officer in compliance hearing will be to verify and confirm the sentencing requirements have been fulfilled, be it out of Judge McVeigh's court, out of Superior 5, Superior 4, or the future Superior 7. That will include confirming that court costs, fines, and fees have been paid. If there's a domestic violence component, that's been completed, drug interdiction fees, public defender fees, proof of completion of drug or alcohol programming, proof of treatment, proof of community service hour completion. So those are, ultimately, that's what this one position, I anticipate I'm going to have to find additional administrative support within my office right now to assist this, if it's granted, this probation officer. Frankly, this is a lot. In fact, I think Judge Zeman mentioned an email to me, and I think Mr. Harrington could also affirm that there are multiple staff members that are assigned to work these compliance hearings. And I'm going to take all of that and somehow hand it to one probation officer and say, go do this. However, I do anticipate that I'm going to have to divert some additional staff assistants, administrative staff assistants to help out. This is a big job, given the fact that if someone's not in compliance, then we have to report that to the court and ultimately potentially file a petition of probation and turn it over to Mr. Harrington's staff and have them then review whether or not they're going to take action on it. So that's kind of a summary of what I'm requesting is your thoughts and consideration on helping us support the lower courts, 4, 5, and the future 7, with an additional probation officer. Starting probation officer, first year's $36,000. That's just the minimum state mandated salary. That doesn't include medical benefits or any other. That's just the salary. By the end of, by year 1, then it moves to $39,000, and by their end of their second year, they're to $43,000.
And Dave, this was requested out of the lit public safety fund,
Thank you. Yes, I was hoping that we could, if there's funding available on the public safety fund. I did not want to speak on behalf of Judge McVeigh. She's here also. Judge Zeman isn't available, so if.
Oh, no, I'm not taking it that you're speaking on behalf of me. I support this request. Be a little closer here. I support the request. Dave's numbers are accurate. In Superior 5 alone, approximately 1,900 cases per year, and that's averaging 17, 18, 19. And in Superior Court 4, approximately 1,000 each year. And for a long time, members of the prosecutor's office and court staff have been performing the function. And given the length of time of existence in Superior 4 and 5, no secret, our population has grown by 60,000 plus. And we're at a point where certain individuals, certain percentage of our caseload need a little bit more supervision than unsupervised. And the ability to provide those services is, we're at a critical point where we need these resources. So I support this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions and concur with my colleague Dave's presentation.
Any questions either for the judge or for Dave?
Well, and also make it be stated that we were looking at taking this one, if it's passed, taking out public safety funds, so not out of the general funds.
Correct, I'm sorry if I misspoke to that effect. That's what I anticipated, is that we'd look at perhaps obtaining funding to the Public Safety Fund.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we approve the probation officer as stated.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Prosecutor's Office. Request is for 2 deputy prosecuting attorneys and 1 digital forensic analyst. The attorneys are SO, and the digital forensic analyst would be a Pat 4. And Pat is here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're requesting those 3 positions. The one, the high-tech crime unit, that's kind of a blend between ourselves and the Sheriff's Department, so I'll talk on the DPAs. We asked for these positions, actually asked for 3 a year ago, and we didn't get them. These are for Superior Court 7. We need 2. They qualify for the Public Safety Income Tax Fund. We desperately need them. We do not have really manpower to cover Superior Court 7. Although you're moving cases from point A to point B, it's kind of like having a new restaurant. You still have to have people in the restaurant, which is in the courtroom, doing work. In 4, 5, 6, and 7, we will be in court approximately 3.5, 4 days a week. So that means our people who are already overworked by being in the courtroom will now have to be spread thinner to a Superior Court 7. And then they'll have no time to review cases, do discovery, do plea negotiations, do hearings, pretrial hearings, bond hearings, bench trials, jury trials, modifications of sentences, requests for license suspensions, reinstatement, expungement hearings, or any of those other type of hearings which we have to keep up on. So
Did you practice that one in front of the mirror?
I actually did, but I was kind of impressed with that. Can I watch it on tape?
That was pretty good, Pat. You just needed a musical score behind it.
You know, I can get a rhythm here like Songland and start going.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we approve 1 deputy prosecuting attorney position and 1 digital forensic analyst.
Second.
You have a motion and a second to approve 1 DPA and 1 digital forensic analyst. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And motion passes.
Okay, thank you. The high-tech crime unit, actually, the sheriff, it's going to be in our budget, but I think when Tracy was the sheriff, we started the high-tech crime unit, and the MOU was each agency supplied personnel. This is actually a benefit to our county because having a civilian employee frees up one of those law enforcement positions for the sheriff to actually be out doing law enforcement, whether it be in a lab, both very important positions. So we thank you for that.
Thanks, Pat.
Next department is Public Defender. For a litigation assistant, a Comet 3 that would be paid for out of the general fund. And Amy wasn't available. We couldn't reach her.
Go to.
Oh, is she on go-to? Okay. Amy's there if you need her.
Amy, can you speak?
While you're doing that, I'll just comment, because I'm assuming Bob.
Individual would handle Superior Court 7, as well as help us maintaining the case files for when individuals ask for them. I have scanners, but quite frankly, one of them is spending all her time sending files to inmates at the Department of Corrections because our clients don't do a very good job of keeping track of their files. So this individual would handle all the case assignments for Superior 7, assist with phone calls, and handle all the closed files and the scanning for that court, as well as assist with the phone, which obviously is all a variety of courts.
And this position does not qualify for public safety, right?
That would be my understanding, yes.
And I'll just make a note that I appreciate, Amy, your willingness to attempt to do, to take on the new court without adding additional public defenders and just doing it with a litigation assistant. So I appreciate you giving that a try. With that, I'll make the motion that we approve that litigation assistant position.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next is the Sheriff's Department. We've got a request for a patrol lieutenant, a patrol sergeant, 2 courthouse securities, which are poll 3s, 6 jail deputies, which are poll 2s, and 2 communication officers, which are poll 2s as well.
And if you look at your sheet here, we've asked for all this out of public safety tax money. I understand everything's going to be tight with the general fund, so all these positions we're asking to come out of that. The top 2, the lieutenant and sergeant, they would go into the jail, trying to get creative since we know money's tight. That's why Prosecutor Harrington and I talked about this high-tech crime unit. That frees up one of our officers. I can still send detectives to Celebrate training and different things like that, but it puts somebody back on the road. Getting management in the jail to help Captain Lehman right now is crucial. They can manage transport, manage the things that are going on in the back. That's going to free up deputies to be out on the streets. Courthouse security, you need people to guard the restaurant, right, Pat? You got another court going in. It's extremely busy. The jail deputies, it goes without saying, as Tracy knows, we need to be able to provide security and work, have more people working in the pods, walking around with our medical staff, making sure rounds are being done, escorting inmates up to book in when they're going to court hearings. Right now, we don't have the manpower to do that efficiently. You'll notice there's communications officers, so we have full staff in there. There was 2 working in there the other day. When I called in the other night, I think it was the 4th of July. I don't know if anybody has a scanner, but I think everybody absolutely lost their mind July 4th. They're extremely busy. We had a major call out. There aren't any deputies on here. We obviously need them, but what we're trying to do is be creative with what we have. We've gone after a school resource officer grant, which we were granted to, but we don't have the document. We were granted to, but we don't have the document to say, here they are, so they're not on here. I've talked with the schools. The idea is to put a full-time officer in each high school. I don't know what that does for the overtime, but right now we can't even fill the slots at the high school. If I get 2 SROs in the future, 1 in each school, and have the 3 going around doing the programs, that frees more people up that are out on the streets. So we're trying to do things and be creative so we free the officers up to do the job of patrolling. We started a special deputy program with them. We have 1 right now who sits on inmates at the hospital when he can. It's been wonderful. We want to grow that, but like everything else, COVID has completely stopped everything. But again, all of these are being asked for from LIT because I know money's tight.
Trying to remember, we were chit-chatting just briefly. Last year, you asked for 6 jail deputies, and we gave you 2, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
And communications officer, you asked for 2, and you got 1.
Yes.
But now we're back up to 6 more.
Yeah, the dispatch, for example, would give us 4 on each shift. Right now, we have 12 total. So I went to the supervisors and asked what they would need, and it would be to have 4 on each shift, which would then help them take more of a supervisory role, and we can get into doing evaluations and things. And talking with the employees one-on-one, a lot of the dispatchers brought up that they would like to be evaluated, know where they stand, know what kind of job they're doing so they can improve. They would like some of their calls, I don't want to say investigated, but kind of critiqued a little bit so they know that they're doing a good job. Jail deputies, I mean, the population's growing. The needs are growing, especially if we get this program, the special deputy program going. We're just going to need more people. We've started the search team back up, and instead of having like 5 or 6, I was shocked. There's probably 20-something in there at their first meeting. So we have a lot of people that are getting involved. We just got to get them more manpower. FMLA and leaves like that really hurt us. And, no, I didn't, can you say that? You can say it. And military leave that's hurting us too. But it's for a good thing. They're serving our country, and we appreciate that.
Sheriff, if you had to prioritize one of your merit, which would that be? Lieutenant, I'm
A
assuming.
lieutenant, absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, President, are you ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we approve the patrol lieutenant merit position, 1 courthouse security, 4 jail deputies, and 1 communications officer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is for soil and water. These have not gone to Wagner to get the classification, so this is an approximation. One is an administrative assistant, Pat 2. Second is special projects conservationist, Pat 3.
And again, neither of these positions, as you said earlier, have been classified yet.
Correct.
And both would come from the general, so I think we told Chris this tight. So I think we just,
Does Chris happen to be on the meeting?
I have a caller that's non-identified, but I don't know. I think she might be watching by YouTube. She was on here earlier, but she's not now.
so if we take no action, then
I'm not hearing a motion, so I'm going to guess that it's denied with no motion.
Okay, with no action. Superior 7, requesting 2 court reporters, 1 bailiff, and 1 admin assistant, but the admin assistant is not to start until mid-year, after they've assessed how the court is going.
So is that part of our action here today, or is it just to create it? Meaning, do we not create it till then? I mean,
I think you have to create it in order for the council to fund the half a year,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, and then obviously you work closely with the judges.
Judge Williams.
And they're
And
ones
the
that-
other judges had input, and this is what Judge Williams wanted me to request.
Okay, so, Mr. President, for Superior 7, I would make the motion we create 2 court reporter positions, a bailiff position, and then an admin assistant position, but that one is not to start until July 1st?
He said mid-year, so.
I don't know what a pay period hits there.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve those 4 positions as outlined by Shirley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, and the last department is Community Corrections. These are still at Wagner. We should get them back sometime this week. So these are guesstimates on the levels. Community Outreach and Training Coordinator, Pat 3. Intake and Community Service Coordinator, Pat 3. Intake Officer, Poll 2. Licensed Social Worker, Pat 2. Then 2 Masters Licensed Mental Health Counselors, which we assume would be Pat 4. And a Bachelor's Licensed Addictions Counselor, which we're looking at possibly a Pat 3. And Jason is here.
Morning, Jason.
Good morning. These are all being requested out of the public safety tax. There is no dispute that community corrections and community supervision programs are growing by leaps and bounds throughout the state and specifically within our facility. We are on pace this year to top 6,000 people to come through our doors. That's up from 5,700 from last year, not including where we started just a handful of years ago around the 2,000 mark. It has been said by ourselves, by everybody that's been a part of meetings, mental health, substance abuse, and poverty are those topics that are front and center in our world. This addresses all that. The training and the training coordinator and outreach coordinator, we spent the last 2 years going from a 35-page policy manual to almost an 800 policy manual. We invested time, we invested your money to have the best policies throughout the country to guide us. With that comes mandatory training for each one of those policies. We have a staff of now 54 people. We have over 50 policies that require annual training on that. Obviously, there's a lot of logistics to make sure that everybody's in compliance with those policies. Policies don't do any good if we're not complying by them. We have a very robust internship program. We have a very robust partnerships with Purdue University, Ivy Tech. We want to be more involved in our community, and having somebody that's able to recruit in the minority communities to go out and be at job fairs and to do those things that that are going to assist us and make us a more well-rounded facility is absolutely imperative. So I'm requesting that position. Intake and public service, or public community service, excuse me. We have over 550 people on a daily population for our community service. Right now that's being handled by secretaries, and while they do an okay job of managing it just on a time basis, we don't have the ability to make sure that everybody's complying with the requirements set forth by their community service, that payments are being made like they're supposed to be made, and just the confirmation that that's being done the way that it should be done. Our intake process, if there's anything that, if there's any good, if you will, that's come of COVID, it's the fact that we've reduced the jail population and transferred a lot of people onto community service or community corrections and the various programs. We take on anywhere during normal times about 50 to 70 people a week that we bring on to community corrections. Having somebody that can oversee our intake department and help our two staff facilitate that and make those transfers happen more quickly is absolutely imperative, and that tail ends into the ask for the other intake officer. When we only have, if we have two people working, that's great. But that's very rare. They both have a lot of time on, so they have a lot of time to use. Being able to have that third person, we can facilitate sign-ons much quicker, both from the jail and from the street and the Department of Corrections. So that is for that ask. Again, the mental health side of it and substance abuse, we all understand that that's an issue. We've all talked about it, and it's time, I think, to say, what are we going to do about it? And this is an opportunity for us to be at the forefront, not only in our community, but in the state of providing those services in-house. It's great to be able to refer to our community partners at Valley Oaks, Sycamore Springs, and those other services, but there's some real challenges to get people there. Transportation is obviously a huge issue. The wait time to get people the help that they need when they need it is a huge issue. We have the opportunity to bring that stuff in-house. And there's some funding opportunities that come with that. We are a certified outpatient facility through DMHA, and that allows us to apply for Recovery Works. Everybody that qualifies for Recovery Works has the option, or has the ability to bill, and we would have the ability to be the payee of those services. It's $3,100 for 8 weeks of service for every person. So there's an income stream that we may be able to help support those positions in mental health and substance abuse. The social worker, getting people just back on life, getting people back on track with their lives, absolutely paramount to what we do. Right now, we're asking case managers to do that. While they do a good job of it, that's not their level of expertise. The social worker would be able to really direct and get people hooked up and put back on that right course. So those are my asks, and happy to answer any questions.
I will just thank you for taking on the initiative that you have, not just this year, but in the past, for getting programming into community corrections and stressing the importance of doing so. Hopefully, before too long, we'll start having, real community conversations about getting you additional programming space and that type of thing. However, if you did have to prioritize these positions, how would you do so?
The 2 coordinator positions would be on my list, mental health and substance abuse, followed by the intake, and then a social worker.
Would both of the coordinators be top priority?
The training would be first and foremost. So if I had to eliminate one, I'd eliminate the intake supervisor and ask for the training and outreach coordinator.
So if we did the community outreach and training coordinator, one licensed mental health counselor and the bachelor licensed addictions counselor, am I falling in line with your priorities? Is that,
Yes.
okay.
If we could throw the intake officer on, that'd be great.
And the intake officer, how is that a new position?
It's not a new, we're looking at, right now they're classified as case managers, but they're in charge of our intake process. So we're in the process of redoing our job descriptions. We call them intake officers. They're case managers right now.
And how many how many case managers do you have right now?
We have two people that are in charge of intake.
Okay.
That are intake officers.
Okay. If you're okay, I'll.
So I think you'll go ahead in your motion.
Okay. All right. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the community outreach and training coordinator, the intake officer, the one master's licensed mental health counselor, and one bachelor's licensed addictions counselor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
I have something that's not jobs. Okay, in the folder, you have an agreement with Berkshire to upgrade to EEOP.
Mr. President, I move that we approve this consulting service agreement with Berkshire not to exceed $4,500 to update our EEOP.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Grants, Pat? VOCA grant?
Yeah.
Hello, I'm here on the VOCA grant.
Wow. What's the dollar amount of the grant?
This is a Victims of Crime Act grant, which we applied for and received about $597,000, which allows us to pay for 3.5 victim advocates. And the good thing about this grant, it allows us to hire, our counselor can now treat children of crimes as opposed to just adults. So we're very fortunate. This is the third cycle of VOCA grants we've received from the state Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. And we're very proud that they recognize our program as being one of the leading programs in the state.
And so this is to grant permission to accept?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we grant permission to accept the VOCA grant, the amount of $596,370.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion passes.
Thank you. also have the Adult Protective Service Grant contract, which we've received every year. This is based upon the state funding cycle. It's just a continuation of the services we provide for not only Tippecanoe County, but the 7 adjacent counties. Our caseload has increased every year. We're up over 2,000 calls for service, and this allows us to hire another full-time Adult Protective Service investigator. You know, it's the corollary, just for the public, if they're watching, DCS takes care of children from birth to age 18. Adult Protective Services is responsible for 18 and over to death for any endangered adult exploited or neglected, and that's what APS does for not only our county, but under the contract, we go to the 7 adjacent counties.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we grant permission to accept the Adult Protective Services grant in the amount of $385,931.73.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Morning. I would like to ask permission to apply for a grant, Community Corrections and Probation, their DOJ annual 2021 budget for over $1 million.
Mr. President, I move to grant permission to apply as stated.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And then the Commissioner's Office is looking at CDBG funding for Phase 2 of the Okra Relief to Hometown Business Preservation Initiative Program. We're asking for $250,000.
Mr. President, I don't have a sheet with me, but Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we grant permission to apply as stated.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Another grant that the Sheriff/Bomb Squad is going to go after would be with the Firehouse Sub Foundation, seeking funding to assist in the purchase of the new bomb squad equipment.
Mr. President, I move that we grant permission to apply as stated.
Oh, okay. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Those are the applications. I'd like permission to accept the grant for rural transportation for $184,935 for the Area 4 Agency on Aging and Community Action Program to continue the support of the Section 5311 transit in Tippecanoe County. There is a report on file, but Anthony is here as well if you have any questions. That contract needs to be signed today so he can get it to NDOT tomorrow, if you approve it.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion, we grant permission to accept the grant as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the grant as outlined. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And last, you have some contracts in front of you. They're the 2020-21 JADA grant. It starts July 1st for law enforcement officers to do the community engagement, also teen courts attorneys, and back on track facilitators for renewing contracts for the funding through this grant cycle.
Okay. So,
And Doug has looked at all of them.
and so there's some highlighted here, or are those highlighted?
It was turned in. Disregard the highlight.
Disregard the highlight?
Yeah.
Okay. And
We've
then
got all
what
of
is
them
the-
in there now.
Okay. And what about the line? Does that mean anything?
I didn't make that line.
Okay. I will make a motion that we approve the contracts with Misty Robinson for the Back on Track program, Mariah Anderson for the Back on Track program, Sanford Swanson for the Back on Track program and the JJJ program, Benjamin North for the JJJ program, John Townsend for the JJJ program, Amanda Guzman for the Teen Court program, Jonathan Holly for the Teen Court program, and Sarah Wyatt for the Teen Court program.
And then Dr. Olivers is the, she's the new facilitator, back on track facilitator. She's got a separate contract. Rebecca didn't put her in, that's the last contract on there.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to add that contract in as well.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Are these both fairgrounds?
We have two change orders from the fairgrounds. It'll be the first one and the third one. We've already taken care of the middle one.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the change order with Mole Hops in this total sum of $2,466. This was to change some black storefront door hinges. And then also with Tippecanoe, this is to add some more PVC pipe and insulation, and it is an increase of $2,120. I so move.
I'll second that. And was it second change order for the sound insulation in the Coliseum? Is that what that was?
No, this is mainly for the fire protection, overall overhead water lines,
Oh,
things
okay.
like that.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Have a professional services agreement with Ice Miller, Bob or Tom? Or Doug?
Yeah, like permission to accept on behalf of the county, the proposal by Ice Miller. This is a bond review to have them do the arbitrage calculations that the IRS requires, make sure that we're not basically profiting off of the bond money we're holding because it's tax-free. So you've got to have something in the file that that shows that you're not making money off the property or off the bond funds, or if you are, that you pay the taxes that you owe. So that's a proposal to do that for $3,500.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion. We approve that professional services agreement.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have an agreement, an updated agreement with EDF Energy where we bulk buy our natural gas. It's one of the few things that I've seen in terms of utilities that ever goes down. It did in this case from $3.27 a decatherm to $2.90. It's a 3-year agreement, just replacing the agreement that we already had in place. So entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve this agreement as stated.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Application of the villa.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we approve the application to the Tippecanoe County Villa for Brian Michael Lee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the application of the villa. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And the application passes. Any unfinished or new business?
I have none.
None.
Reports on file from the Area 4 Rural Transportation Grant, the Building Commission, the Wabash River Heritage Corridor Commission, and Weights and Measures are available in our office after the meeting. Any public comment? From the audience first. Anybody online, Paula?
Not that I can see, unless Max can see anybody back there.
Final
Move
motion?
adjourn. Move adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Sharon, does this have to be in blue?